NHL Seattle finally has a name, or at least for their arena anyway. I mean, technically Amazon picked the name, but either way, I got you, didn't I? Welcome to Climate Pledge Arena. Midday Thursday, NHL Seattle announced that Amazon, who had bought the naming rights for the new Seattle Center Arena, had picked the name Climate Pledge Arena. And honestly, I couldn't be much happier with the news. Now, whoa, I understand what you're probably thinking. Come on, dude, this name is lame. And if you're gonna roast the Rams over their new jersey and logo like you did, you have to be willing to admit when your beloved Seattle teams do something like this. And look, I get it, and I honestly totally agree. At face value, this is a really lame name for an arena. And if all the other arenas, or even a good portion of them in the league, had awesome creative names that went along with them, I would be all over this. But that's just not the case. The fact of the matter is, almost every other arena in the league has an equally lame name, and really the only reason we don't think of them that way is because over time we just get used to them. And in some cases we make up cool nicknames, but that still isn't the actual name for the arena, and there could still be a nickname that's made up eventually for this one. I mean, come on, are you really going to tell me that this name is that much worse than the American Airlines Center, the BB&T Center, or the Canadian Tire Center, which just sounds like a big tire shop? And I've heard some people ask, if you're going to give it a name like this, why not just keep it called Seattle Center Arena? At least it's a pretty good name and it obviously represents the city well. Again, that's just not how it works. A big part of every arena's funding is the advertisement slot that the name provides, and unless you're Madison Square Garden, that means you're going to end up selling it to some corporate sponsor. To which you might find yourself asking, well, it's been called Key Arena forever, so why not just re-up with KeyBank and keep calling it Key Arena? Well, for one, that's assuming that KeyBank either wants or can afford that advertisement slot. And for another thing, the Sabres already have the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, and I'm not sure that we want another Vancouver-Edmonton thing on our hands. Besides, none of that really matters because, as I said earlier, Amazon already had the naming rights anyway. So then why not just call it the Amazon Arena? That's really not that bad sounding of a name, at least if you're going to have a corporate sponsor anyway. And honestly, I would have to agree with you. Amazon Arena does sound better than Climate Pledge Arena. But actually, this is where I started to really like what they had done here, and just hear me out on this. So at this point, we've already pretty well established that there was always going to be some kind of corporate sponsor that was going to control the name of the arena. And again, Amazon Arena isn't that bad sounding of a name. But in case you haven't ever heard of Amazon before, it turns out that they have more than enough money to where the advertisement that the name of an arena would provide really wouldn't help them out all that much. So if they're not going to profit that much off putting their own name on it, then why not put the name of something else that they're a part of on it? And that's exactly what they did by giving the name the Climate Pledge Arena. Now I'm going to admit that my first reaction to this was to think that it was pretty awesome that they were going to give it a name that would bring awareness to the major issue of climate change and what we all need to do to help solve it. But I did also think that Climate Pledge Arena sounded a bit clunky and again pretty lame as far as the name goes, and that they could have come up with a better name if that's the message that they wanted to get across. But what I didn't know, or at least remember, was that the Climate Pledge is already a real thing. It's something that Amazon teamed up with a group called Global Optimism on in September of 2019. And in short, it's the corporate agreement to meet the standards of the Paris Agreement only 10 years earlier than what the Paris Agreement already sets out. Now granted, the Paris Agreement isn't perfect, and the only reason that corporations in the US would have to do something like this is because the US government decided that they want nothing to do with the Paris Agreement. But that's a whole bunch of political stuff that is not the purpose of this channel, so I'm not going to get into it. Instead, I'm just going to give you the 3 main bullet points of what this Climate Pledge are and what it means for the companies that sign on to it. Companies that sign the Climate Pledge agree to measuring and reporting greenhouse gas emissions on a regular basis, implement decarbonization strategies in line with the Paris Agreement through real business changes and innovations, including efficiency improvements, renewable energy, material reductions, and other carbon emission elimination strategies. Neutralize any remaining emissions with additional quantifiable, real, permanent, and socially beneficial offsets to achieve net zero annual carbon emissions by 2040. So instead of giving it another bland corporate name, Amazon chose to name the arena after a cause that seeks to solve a major global issue. And granted, it is their own cause, but at least it's trying to help. And after all, as they do mention in their video, which I will also give a link to down below, it's a cause that does represent the city of Seattle pretty well. It's a city built in the middle of a temperate rainforest that has a very outdoorsy and progressive culture when it comes to things like this, even to the point that it does have a bit of a tree-huggy reputation, although, at least for me, I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. And while yes, once again, the name does still sound pretty dumb, it does look pretty nice in the images they provided, with huge neon green lights that would fit perfectly into the skyline of the Emerald City. But more importantly than the name itself, and really the reason that I really liked what I saw from them today, was what they said about the stadium itself. It turns out that those bright lights at the top of the arena are not just a hollow representation of an admirable cause. Instead, the entire arena will be the first one in the world to operate at net zero emissions, with all of its energy coming from renewable resources, mostly from solar farms. Which really is a huge step forward and paves the way for more stadiums and arenas to be built this way in the future, and really could, in the long term, make this a historic arena. But they're not just stopping at the construction and powering of the arena when it comes to making it a totally sustainable building, even making a plan to make it a plastic-free arena by 2024, which is another big step forward. And on top of all that, they also announced the ice itself is going to be made up of reclaimed rainwater from the roof. And while that does sound a bit gimmicky, and I'm not even going to pretend to understand the science that goes behind making a good ice surface, it does still sound pretty cool and makes the stadium even that more uniquely Seattle. And not for nothing, but I did really like what I saw from the updated concept images of the inside of the stadium, and how much green there was. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that green is guaranteed to be one of the colors of the team. After all, the Mariners didn't switch to pink and blue when T-Mobile took over the park. But it does seem like it's a potential positive step towards getting green for the colors of the Emerald Cities hockey team. Plus, at least as far as I'm concerned, it's really not that much worse than any of the other arena names in the NHL. Except for obviously Madison Square Garden and even maybe the Saddle Dome. Although we did also just recently find out that that thing's getting replaced, so that name's not going to be around anyway. Now, if you have made it to this point and are still not tired of listening to me defend NHL Seattle and the Climate Pledge Arena, don't think that I'm not blind to the fact that they have now come up with an arena name before they even have a name for the team. Yes, I do find the fact that the arena now has a name and the team still doesn't after all this time to be really freaking annoying. But at least keep this in mind. If you don't like the name of this arena, it's probably just going to be called the Crack House eventually anyway. Or maybe just the Salmon House, although Ivers kind of already has that, so who knows. But if you have now made it to this point in the video, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you did like this video, please do hit that like button. If you really liked it and want to see more NHL Seattle or anything else that I have going on the channel, do hit that subscribe. And as always, I would love to hear your comments on what you think about this team name, how lame it is, or any other potential names you could have thought of that would be better. Otherwise, I hope to see you next time. Stay safe out there and be good to each other. Peace!